Right, so good morning, everybody. Welcome to another State of the Nation breakfast at the Tryst, not at Sandton Convention Centre. Well done. Let's first start. Did anybody go to the wrong venue? Oh dear, there's always going to be one. I think she wins a prize. Thank you so much for coming out to support us today. We've got a lovely day ahead because we've got a great mix of contributors today. We have got the former mayor of the city of Tshwane, Salil Brink, and we know him because he was in the news a lot over the last year with all the fun and games that happened in the city of Tshwane. And he's going to speak to us just now, perhaps warm us up to what we can expect for the local government elections and explain to us why what should be happening in 2026. Now everybody keeps on saying it's going to happen in 2027. But anyway, local government elections late next year or a month or two later. We have the former leader of the opposition in Parliament and now leader of Build One South Africa, Mmusi Maimane. Mmusi has been a regular on our second channel, which I hope you've all subscribed to, called The Political Insider, where we take an inside look at some of the things that are going on, shorter content, a couple of minutes, between 5 and 10 minutes a day. And then, of course, we still have the longer interviews and analysis on the State of the Nation channel. And we also have everybody's favorite politician, leader of the Freedom Front Plus, Corne Mulder, who was nearly responsible for my death last night. You must never phone an event organizer the night before and then hang up immediately. Some of the worst conclusions were drawn in the matter of in as fast as it took me to dial back, only for him to tell me that he pocket dialed me. So, thanks for nothing, Corne. But you did make it, you did apologize, and here we are. So, last bit of housekeeping. There's water around, don't be confused. White cap water is sparkling and the dark lids are still. So, there's plenty. Sponsored by our partners in crime here at the State of the Nation, Munzi Water. Pascal and Belinda, thank you so much for coming on board. That is a theme that you will see in the State of the Nation, is that we have got some people that have supported us. Some have been quite loud in their support, some have not, but we appreciate every bit because it is a challenge staying on the air. But we'll keep on doing it because this has turned, I've got to tell you just a quick story about the State of the Nation. What really gave us the motivation to take this seriously. And that is about towards the beginning of, it was 2 years ago, middle of 2023. It's hard to believe we're nearly at the end of 2025. I had arranged an interview with a senior member of the Patriotic Alliance. Now, I've tried really hard to not view the Patriotic Alliance as an organization that's not necessarily there to be a serious political party, but to get close to some tenders. I really have tried. Gayton McKenzie is insufferably nice to know. He's just a guy you want to chat to. He's engaging. And as much as I think they've become a serious force, whenever I do an interview or an interaction with Patriotic Alliance, it usually ends up in a shouting match with the promises of blows to follow. But after one heated discussion with somebody from the Patriotic Alliance, they said in an insulting way, "Good luck with your video hobby." That has now become, that was the motivation to take this seriously. That's all I needed because he was right. At that point, I think we had about 20,000 followers. We started to take it seriously because it's not a video hobby. It's become a lot more than that. And we're now about to go past the 100,000 mark on YouTube. We've got a similar number on TikTok. We've got a big number on Facebook. We've got about 300,000 people following us on various social media channels. I can officially announce that this is no longer a video hobby. It's become a voice, and we use it hopefully in a constructive way. And we'll keep on holding all of the politicians to account, especially the ones that we do like. The ones that we don't like invariably don't come onto the show. The breakfast is, we'll keep that open. We don't need to stop. Most of you have eaten already, so good luck with that. We'll carry on as we go through. If you get hungry, go there. There's coffee right over there. Filter coffee. If you really want to get fancy and get something that needs a lot of noise, there's the coffee cart. But let's talk about where South Africa finds itself. Now, South Africa is a podcaster's dream. We have a never-ending stream of content. Right? I will really, perhaps, maybe, miss the ANC when they finally lose power, because they do provide us with endless content. To have an interview where the spokesperson of the biggest party in the country says that investors must leave the country and go invest in India is podcasting gold, but it's not very good for the country. And it was a great moment for us, but not a good one for the country. We finally got to see what the ANC really thinks of business, their understanding of economics, the depths to which they're prepared to take the country to satisfy their ideological needs. Now, just when we thought that we're going to be spending the next 4 years on the State of the Nation covering the government of national unity and this detail or that detail, along comes July the 6th, where Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi gets up, does a very South American-looking press conference flanked by camouflaged, face-masked, gun-toting men, and says he's got evidence of corruption that links criminal syndicates with senior politicians. Suddenly, all the news matters a lot less, because this is a big moment. Now, to South Africans that are so used to hearing some really serious things, and we sort of take it in our stride, this is not something that we need to take in our stride anymore. This has actually moved the goalposts, in my opinion, and we look forward to hearing what our guests have to say. Why are the revelations by General Mkhwanazi so serious? They're serious because, often when you do corruption, it feels like money's just being taken, but you don't know how the money is used in the first place. It feels like yes, we're very annoyed by this corruption, but politicians are going to steal. This one's different. Here we're talking about drug syndicates, assassinations of political politicians, right? Murder of high-profile people linked to people running our country. This is not a small deal. This is a big deal. And how do we know that it's serious? We could see it was serious just in the past week, where President Ramaphosa behaved like a child who had lost his toy when he found out that our Commissioner of Police, Fanny Masemola, had given the 121 dockets that Mkhwanazi referenced back to the political killings task team to investigate. We have grown so accustomed to the plan of the ANC, which is to bury things under process. You have a commission of inquiry, it takes years. By the time the findings of that commission of inquiry come out, we've all forgotten what the original problem was. Nobody can really take it further. Mainstream media is onto the next thing. And, instead of behaving like normal, the ANC have got really, really concerned by this. And this is going to be seismic, in my opinion. And I'm dying to hear what the politicians that are gathered here today think about it. So, the way that they are losing their collective shit over this Mkhwanazi affair tells you that there's something very, very serious on here. In fact, far more serious than when a president sells imaginary cattle to an imaginary investor, and then the money winds up in his furniture. Now, that's just sort of like normal criminal stuff. It's just tasteless. But I think that when you find out that politicians are actually funding people that kill our children, that provide drugs to poor communities, that assassinate people, we've taken a whole different turn. And suddenly we are not talking about governments of national unity. We are not talking about zero economic growth. So it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, because let's face it, South Africa's got many problems to solve, and I don't know if we're going to be helped by having this high-profile investigation, but it has to happen. Now, this happens against the backdrop of those local government elections which will happen a year from now, give or take a couple of months, where some of the polling puts the ANC down even further. Now, I don't want today to be all about the ANC, so I want to cover it up front. But I want to just explain to you where I see the ANC right now. So, Matthew, we've prepared something for you just so that you can see where the ANC is now. You know that awkward moment? We can just start at the beginning, and stop exactly where they are, Matthew. They are pretty much there. They're over the cliff, but they're still running. They haven't understood that the ground is no longer beneath them. And I can't see a way that the inevitable doesn't happen, and that is that they look down and realize that there is nowhere else but down. All I do know is that there's going to be a fiesta of corruption between now and then, because if you were a guy with the keys to the safe and you knew you're going to have to hand over those keys at some point, you might as well just open the safe for the last time, take what's left. That's what we're starting to see everywhere. We're seeing it in ministries we never even thought were serious ministries. Higher education, where they're stealing CETA money. Tourism, SA tourism. I know the people from OUTA are here. It's something we've been covering, and the situation is terrible, where R1 billion is disappearing on fictitious work. We saw it in the Treasury, where even the government pension fund is being raided. People being paid, literally being paid, to do nothing. Right? There's a couple of tenders where they actually tried to get payment for an invoice that had no real job to do, paid with our money. It's going to happen, and we have to be extremely vigilant. So while the ANC waits for the inevitable drop of the edge of the cliff, why have suddenly the members in the government of national unity gone so quiet? Well, one can only explain that, and I'm not going to answer. I'm going to give you my view, and then we'll hear from somebody who is in the government of national unity, Dr. Mulder. We've got a couple of doctors. We've got 2 doctors in the house, but I don't think either of them can treat you if you have to have a heart attack. So suddenly the government of national unity has almost become an irrelevance again. Nobody is talking up. Everybody seems to be quite happy to sit back and watch the ANC self-implode. So look, either you've got to say that the call's been made in the government of national unity that there's nothing to do while we wait for the ANC to inevitably fall off the edge of the cliff. But I think we would expect a little bit more from the parties in the government of national unity. We understand that we've got no official opposition in Parliament, a dysfunctional Mkhwanazi party as the official opposition. They must be the only party that wants to scrap the Mkhwanazi findings worse than the ANC, one would imagine. Or is that Julius Malema, who purposely tried to squash the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee? So, good citizens and taxpayers of South Africa, I'm not 100% sure who's even trying to represent us in Parliament. Very hard to tell. All we know is that the DA is trying to get our passports to us quicker. Maybe they're trying to send us a message. Maybe for those of us that don't get passports in time, maybe we should go and hide in a container full of fruit, because that seems to be the only thing that keeps the DA busy is agriculture and home affairs. But not a mention of the big problems, not a mention of the zero growth that we've got in the country, nothing. Then we've got parties that are outside of the government of national unity. These are the ones that have given the ANC backing to some of their most harebrained ideas. National Dialogue, now getting support from parties. And one of those are represented here today, and we've had a discussion about it, as to how disgusting is it that a president gets up and says, we need to have a national dialogue so that you can tell us why some hospitals that the government runs out of tablets. Can you imagine? That's what he thinks the national dialogue is there for. When he runs the National Health Service, it's pretty crazy. It's almost as crazy as when the Minister of Finance, instead of trying to curb expenditure so that the budget could match, the expenditure could match the income, he chose to want to implement an increase in VAT by 2 percentage points. There's only one thing crazier than that, was that parties thought it was a good idea and went and supported him, and it was only a court action that stopped them, and I know that Musi's going to disagree with me. Okay? There is this sort of understanding by many of the parties, especially those that are linked, where some of their members were linked to the Democratic Alliance before, that seems to think that the problem with the ANC is that we've just been speaking too unkindly with them. Perhaps if we were just nicer to them, they'd behave better. I don't see it. Right? All the nice meetings with their tripartite alliance hasn't helped or stopped corruption. Why would they suddenly change it? Why would they suddenly become a party that listens to opposition members? I don't see it happening. And I don't see how us establishing a Vichy regime in Parliament, where some of these small parties, driven more by their dislike of their former careers in the ANC, want to just do one over on the DA. I'm not 100% sure how that helps the country. This country is in desperate need of some kind of plan. The economy is collapsing. Every day we get reference to another disinvestment in South Africa. Smelters closing. Francois, we were talking about it earlier. More smelters closing. Right? Ford closing down. ArcelorMittal. How's this for a good idea? Lakshmi Mittal is one of the richest men in the world. He bought Eskom. He then threatens to close down his plants. What does the South African government do? They go and give him 1.7 billion rand to keep his plants open, and then he closes them anyway. Where's the outrage in our parliament? I haven't seen it. So right now, there is a very, very thin private sector that's holding this country together, while our politicians dither. Now, you can't fault a predator for eating its prey, because that's what they do. I'm saying that the comrades parties are built to steal. The ANC, Mkhwanazi, EFF, these parties don't give a damn about people. Because if they did, if you were part of the EFF and you wanted South Africa to be a better country, you would at least stop the corruption in the city of Johannesburg. But they sit there, steal with the best of them. So I don't see them being some kind of government that's going to come out and run the country cleanly. Don't see it. So where does that leave us? It leaves us absolutely on our own. It leaves some of our politicians going overseas to speak to Donald Trump and some of his people in the hope that salvation can come from overseas. Now, I don't know how that happens. How do we expect that to work? Do we really expect that the US must come and solve our problems? They've got problems of their own and mounting. We are completely adrift. We have become like Italy, where for 40 years they almost didn't have a government and people had to do everything themselves. And I think South Africa finds itself exactly there. What do us as South African citizens trying to make a living, trying to live a life in this country do when we know that there isn't anybody in Parliament that actually cares about us? The people at the bottom of the pile, in terms of concern from our politicians in Parliament, are the taxpayers. We hear a lot about the poorest of the poor. It's a term that I think is the most disgraceful term I've ever heard in my life. Thabo Mbeki's favorite, the poorest of the poor. Such a disgrace to call people the poorest of the poor. I mean, really. But anyway, we hear a lot about what we're going to do for the poor. We never ever hear what we're going to do for the taxpayer. That's become the swear word. So our salvation is unlikely to come from the USA. I don't suddenly see America saying, you know what, we'll drop everything and try and help South Africa onto the right path. Well, we've got a parliament to do that. We've got elections to do that. We've got a minority government. We've got a coalition government of national unity thing that isn't working. It's been tried. It's not looking good. At what point do people actually start doing something? When do these parties leave this government of national unity or get tainted with it? Now, at the moment, there's 10 parties in the government of national unity. About 4 of them are just on the take. These are the small parties that just by voting with the ANC, you know you're going to get a nice salary at the end of the month and blue lights. People like Patricia de Lille, people like Al Jamar, PAC. These are parties that are hanging on grimly with their one seat, but yet they become cabinet ministers. So those parties you can expect. But the bigger parties that have some kind of constituency, they seem to be hiding behind the fact that the DA is the only party that is fighting to a degree. But are they fighting? Do we feel that the DA is helping us out? I don't know. I know that their Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry got fired. They said nothing about it. They've done nothing about it. They haven't replaced him. So it feels to me like they've become as subservient as some of those other parties that slavishly follow the ANC. I can honestly say that I don't know what the solution is. We keep on hoping that there's something out there. A couple of months ago, we were hoping that the US would put sanctions on our leaders so that that could lead to better behavior. Well, I think that ship has sailed. I think we got about as much out of the US as we could. So what's our next salvation? Let's see. I suppose the only thing we could look at is a complete rout of the ANC at local government level in those elections next year. That would certainly help if they do, as one of the polls suggest, go down to 20% in Johannesburg. Maybe it'll sober people up. But dropping from 60% to 40% didn't sober everybody up, and they found enough useful idiots to support them in everything they do. Maybe the salvation is in the national dialogue, giving 1,000 people a microphone to tell the government exactly what we all know already. Don't know, doubt it. Can't see how that works. And we saw the absolute disgrace of the first meeting of our, National Convention, UNISA. Protect dagga smokers or whatever it was that came out of that. It was the most ridiculous affair ever. The idea that this could work is just, it's a disgrace that people think it will work. We need a complete and utter reset. It is a grim picture for somebody who is a natural optimist. I'm not waiting for external events, because we can't. We've got one life to live. We're trying to live it now, but it does feel like nobody is batting for us. I don't see it. I don't know if you do. All I can say is that, as we like to do in South Africa, where we try and find a good news story in some of our darkest moments, maybe the good news story is that this is what finally unites South Africans. It's not just angry white people. It's angry every people. It's black people understanding that it's not a good idea to have potholes in the road. It's not a good idea to just let people steal our money. And maybe we start getting a coming together of South Africans through misery. We've seen wonderful stories in history, post-wars, etc., where countries do unite, where people do come together, because what has just happened has been so bad. I think that we are pretty close to the bottom of the barrel. We tried the electoral process last time by voting out the ANC, but they were very, very good at co-opting support. That's going to be their game. They'll continue to co-opt support. So, in wrapping up, the question becomes, who is our hero? I was stunned. I was stunned by the unquestioning excitement that everybody showed towards what General Mkhwanazi had to say. Unquestioning. And I know that there was a huge amount of heat, and I even experienced some of it on the State of the Nation, where I said, hang on, how do we know that this guy's clean? And boy, you should read those comments. And what does it tell you? It tells you that we don't care who it is. As long, finally somebody stood up and said something that sounds like he's supportive of South Africans. Finally somebody got up there and said, I've got the proof that this is, and I'm going to do something about it. It shows you how desperate we are for a hero. But you wouldn't know that if you listened to the politicians. Not one of them wants to be the hero that we need. They are saying, really, really bad idea, but we'll support it. Really badly run government, but we'll be in it. South Africa needs a hero because we are so desperate. But there's one thing better than a hero, and that is millions of heroes. I liken our situation to what we saw in the early 80s, where the fight against apartheid had got to such a degree, such a level, that the country was busy tearing itself apart. And along came the UDF, the United Democratic Front, that was more solutions-driven. And immediately South Africans gravitated towards that. Because it wasn't just one person, it wasn't war that you could never win. It was actually somebody doing something about the country. Now, we have run down our armory of things that we can actually use to stop the state, to stop this mismanagement. To me, nothing exemplified it more than the response to the national dialogue, where universally everybody said, this is a shit idea, keep it to yourself. We are not interested in yet another dialogue. South Africa got together and condemned it. It didn't stop the government from forging ahead anyway, with R500 million worth of our money. Even though there wasn't one supportive person outside of Parliament. But we have run out of things to fight our own government with. We've tried external. Please, Donald Trump saved us. Save us. We're now trying with one cop who appears to be honest. The last resort is ourselves. And it can't be a far way off. So, as I sit here in crumbling Johannesburg, where you had to negotiate potholes, maybe a traffic light that didn't work, or 10. Let's see if there's some hope that comes from the politicians. I'll always find that sliver of hope. What I'm holding on to is this hopeful rout of the ANC at the local government level. That might rearrange a few deck chairs on this Titanic. But maybe the people that are in the various spheres, people in the GNU, people out of the GNU, people in local government can tell us, can give us some hope. But right now it's looking pretty desperate in South Africa. And I sincerely believe in South Africans and believe that we all want the same things. The politicians don't. They try and divide us. That is the game plan from the politicians, to try and divide us, to try and make it seem like the most urgent issue in a person without a job's life is that a rich politician gets a BEE deal. That's the way the government thinks, so let's see where we go to with that. But somebody will hear us soon enough, because we're not going to stop making noise on the State of the Nation. And before I vacate the stage, I'm going to tell you we're going to make some more noise. On the 15th of October, we are going to have our first breakfast in Pretoria. Before the end of the year, we'll do our first breakfast in Cape Town. We want to get out to people, just to understand, get people on stage answering questions. And then the big news is in November, 13th of November, in this very place, we've got an all-day State of the Nation, where we're going to give the real State of the Nation. We've got rolling out some of the heavy hitters, Frans Cronje, Prince Mashele, Dawie Ruet, Mandisa Mashego, I see at the back there. Coming, there's going to be a few others still to be announced as we put the lineup together, but the 13th of October, you're going to hear it from a whole lot of people that are going to give us a view on South Africa. So hopefully we can take stock and work out where we're going to. But let's hear from other people. I don't want to don't think of me as being depressing, think of me as being realistic. Okay? We are in a country in transition, and it better transition fast while there's still something to save. So thank you for listening to me. I'm going to welcome onto the stage the former mayor of the city of Tshwane and the announced DA candidate in that city of Tshwane, Sulius Brink, who's going to tell us maybe a little more about the local government elections and what we can have to look forward to in these wonderful metros here in Gauteng.